Hi. Hello everyone. Welcome to information sharing session on failure analysis. Part 1, Introduction. In this part, we will briefly touch upon failure analysis, failure analysis methodology, tools and techniques of failure analysis, fracture mechanics, failure data retrieval through failure experience matrix, reliability. What do you mean by term failure? Failure is the gap between expectation and performance. It represents an adverse situation wherein a component, material or system fails to fulfill its intended function satisfactorily during its intended service life. Failures are inevitable in the lifespan of any system, but the probability of these occurrences may vary to a large extent. In general, the pattern of failure can be compared to that of human life characteristics. The failure curve, also known as bathtub curve, is distinctly characterized by 3 failure rate zones. Early failure or infant mortality failure. The first is the short initial period, during which the failures are called infant or early failure, caused generally due to design deficiency, manufacturing defects, assembly and installation lapses. Constant or random failures. The failures in the second zone are termed service failures or constant rate failures. These failures are random and are fairly evenly distributed. Wear out failures. The curve in the third zone is due to the wearing out of parts. The incidence of failures in this zone is high since most of the components would have rendered their service life. Thus, for observed failure rate we get bathtub-shaped curve. Early failure has decreasing failure rate. Random failures has constant failure rate. And wear out failure has increasing failure rate. Failure analysis. It's like playing detective role with objects when it comes to analyzing service failures. The investigation's complexity increases as a result of the inability to establish the missing link on a rational path at times. The following instructions, on the other hand, assist the investigator in reaching the source of the failure systematically. Number 1. Background details, including what happened before and after the failure, the part's manufacturing history, and a conversation with the eyewitness. Number 2. A visual inspection involves a trip to the failure site, sketching and taking measurements, as well as taking notes and photos. It aids in the selection of parts for prima facie analysis and comprehension at the investigation department. Number 3. Non-destructive inspection of the surface and center of the failed component to obtain defect details. Number 4. Fractographic examination to identify the type and nature of fracture. Number 5. Destructive test to ensure that the material is sound and meets the criteria in terms of chemistry, microstructure properties, and other factors. Number 6. Examining all evidence in order to come to a conclusion about the cause of failure and make suggestions on how to avoid it. Among all the guidelines mentioned here, fractography, a term coined in 1944 to describe the science of studying fracture surfaces, is the key to establish the mechanism and type of failure. Fortunately, most metal failures can be adequately analyzed by the metallurgists. Others are more complex and require experts in other engineering disciplines. Failure analysis methodology. Defect analysis is a crucial step in determining the physical causes of problems. Since a single analyst may not be equipped with expertise in various disciplines such as metallurgy, materials science, structural mechanics, corrosion engineering, propulsion engineering, aerodynamics, and so on, the approach to failure analysis and the methodology used may include a team of expert analysts. To arrive at the correct solution to the problem, a team effort is often needed. The method is complicated, requiring a range of observation, examination, and laboratory methods, as well as several different scientific disciplines. keeping an open mind when reviewing and evaluating the facts to foster a straightforward, impartial view of the loss is one of the most important aspects of properly conducting a failure analysis. Following steps become inherent part of failure analysis methodology. Collect background information. Location of the failed component. Specimen collection. Laboratory studies. Analysis of data. Preparation of the report. We will study about each steps in brief. Collect background information. When performing a failure analysis, it is important to gather all relevant context information at the outset, as this assists in the creation of a comprehensive case history about the failure. The collection of the data can be divided into two categories. Details about the failed component. Details about the failure. Name of the component, manufacturer, intended function, service life since new and since last repair, design and actual loads, frequency and orientation of loading, service conditions such as temperature, pressure, environment, concessions given in the components, thermomechanical treatments, surface treatments, inspection techniques, and records are all included in the information about the failed component. Date and time of failure, extent of damage, operating conditions just prior to failure, sketches and pictures of the failed part and surrounding area, eyewitness and earwitness accounts are all details about the failure itself. The investigator should go to the failure site and examine and estimate the damages firsthand. These should be documented as soon as possible. This is a difficult task. Color photography is the best way to document the damage for a more in-depth investigation. Any delay can cause the condition of the failed component to change due to unauthorized handling, environmental influences, and attempts to put the pieces back together. Location of the failed component. Identifying and documenting the location of the failed component in a machine is a critical task in the initial examination of a failure. The part may occasionally be thrown a long distance, as in the case of a rotating component, a moving or flying vehicle, or a large object. It is critical to document the entire wreckage. Also required is the creation of a wreckage distribution map in Cartesian or polar coordinates. Secondary failures are common and can completely destroy the primary failure. As a result, photographic documentation of the wreckage in its as-is where-is condition should be completed before selecting pieces for further laboratory examination. The investigation should be meticulously planned. All tests to be performed must be carefully chosen, and the sequence of tests must be carefully planned. Any decision on a test that involves the destruction of a portion of the component should be made with extreme caution. A faulty test sequence could destroy important evidence or introduce features that are confusing. Specimen collection. A critical step in any failure analysis is the collection of specimens for further laboratory examination. Wrong choices can lead to confusion and the wrong direction of the investigation, in addition to wasting time. The distinction between primary and secondary failures must be made. Samples from the suspected primary failure region must be carefully collected, and their location in the wreckage and the original structure must be documented. Other samples that can provide secondary or additional evidence must be collected as well. Fracture surfaces must be handled with extreme caution. During a detailed laboratory examination, it can provide useful information about the mode and mechanism of fracture. In the field, it is preferable to keep the samples in plastic covers with appropriate desiccants, seal them, and secure the bags with appropriate identifying tags. Before sealing, the fracture surfaces can be sprayed with a clear lacquer. Because human sweat is corrosive, it is best to avoid touching the fracture surfaces. The mating surfaces of a fracture should never be allowed to come into contact with each other, despite the fact that this is a natural and tempting tendency, as this will result in abrasion and the loss of vital microfractographic evidence. Fracture surfaces are delicate and susceptible to mechanical and environmental damage, both of which can destroy microstructural features. As a result, fracture specimens must be handled with caution throughout the analysis process. Unless a fracture is evaluated right away, It should be preserved as soon as possible to avoid environmental attack. Drying a fracture with a gentle stream of dry compressed air before storing it in a desiccator, vacuum storage vessel, or sealed plastic bag containing a desiccant is the best way to preserve it. However, isolating the fracture is not always feasible. To prevent oxidation and corrosion of the fracture surface, corrosion preventive surface coatings must be used. The following are the primary requirements for a surface coating. Number 1. It should not chemically react with the base metal. Number 2. It should protect the fracture from chemical attack from the environment. Number 3. It must be completely and easily detachable without causing any damage to the fracture features. Fresh oil or grease can be applied to fractures. On the fracture surfaces, clear acrylic lacquers or plastic coatings are sometimes sprayed. These clear sprays are visible on the fracture surface and can be removed with organic solvents. However, on rough fracture surfaces, complete coverage and complete removal of the coating can be difficult. Cellulose acetate replicating tape is another type of plastic coating that has been used successfully to protect most fracture surfaces. Acetone is used to soften the tape before applying it to the fracture surface with finger pressure. As the tape dries, it adheres to the fracture surface tightly. The main advantage of using replicating tape is that it comes in a variety of thicknesses. To ensure complete coverage, rough fracture surfaces can be coated with relatively thick replicating tape. The main disadvantage of using replicating tape is that it is difficult to completely remove the tape from rough fracture surfaces. Laboratory studies. Typically, the following activities are carried out in laboratory studies. Cleaning of fracture surface. Preliminary examination, macrofractography. Microscopic examination, microfractography. Chemical analysis. Mechanical properties. Non-destructive evaluation. Any other special technique. Analysis of data. The most important task in any failure analysis is the consolidation and systematic connection of all laboratory test analysis data. The test results must be compared to the specifications, and any deviations, if any, must be carefully considered as potential contributing factors. At this point, expertise from other related disciplines would be extremely helpful in interpreting the data. A complete account of information is now available as a result of careful analysis. The failure initiation site or sites, crack length, propagation path and speed, and the nature and direction of the load acting on the component. The analysis would reveal the role of other factors such as temperature, corrosion, wear, component manufacturing history, assembly and alignment, repair and maintenance history, service abnormalities, and abuses, if any. Eventually, the failure sequence would be established, distinguishing between the primary cause of the failure event and the significant secondary failures and damages. Preparation of the report. Documentation is critical for effectively communicating the results of failure analysis. The report should be concise and include the reasoning behind the conclusions. The following elements comprise the report's essential sections. Description of the failed component. Factors that contributed to the failure. Failure-related operational parameters and conditions. Background information. Visual examination of general physical characteristics. Laboratory investigations, including metallurgical, mechanical, chemical, and other tests, and the results of these investigations. Anomalies, irregularities, if any. Discussion of the mechanism or potential mechanism of failure, as well as the sequence of events. Conclusions and recommendations for preventing similar failures in the future. Bibliographic references to relevant literature. Synopsis. In addition to these elements, the report should include an executive summary, which will allow management to take appropriate action at various levels to avoid future failures. It is critical for the investigator to keep track of the actions taken in response to his or her recommendations. It is highly desirable to maintain contact with the designer, manufacturer, and operator. In summary, the Global 8D report contains all of the above-mentioned information in depth. Failure analysis is a difficult task. It's thrilling, and every failure teaches the analyst something new. The effort will be amply rewarded if the analysis is carried out with the utmost care and caution. Tools and techniques of failure analysis. The following tools and techniques are used in the failure analysis of a variety of products. Microscopes, which include optical microscope, scanning acoustic microscope, scanning electron microscope, atomic force microscope, stereo microscope, photoemission electron microscope, X-ray microscope, infrared microscope, scanning squid microscope, USB microscope, sample preparation, which include jet etcher, plasma etcher, metallography, backside thinning tools, mechanical backside thinning, laser chemical backside etching, spectroscopic analysis, which include transmission line pulse spectroscopy, Auger electron spectroscopy, deep level transient spectroscopy, device modification, which includes focused ion beam etching, surface analysis, which includes dye penetrant inspection, other surface analysis tools, electron microscopy, which includes scanning electron microscope, electron beam induced current in SEM, charge induced voltage alteration in SEM, voltage contrast in SEM, electron backscatter diffraction in SEM, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy in SEM, transmission electron microscope, computer-controlled scanning electron microscope, laser signal injection microscopy, which includes photo carrier stimulation, static, optical beam induced current, light induced voltage alteration, dynamic, laser assisted device alteration, thermal laser stimulation, static, optical beam induced resistance change, thermally induced voltage alteration, external induced voltage alteration, Seebeck effect imaging, dynamic, soft defect localization, 8 semiconductor probing, which includes mechanical probe station, electron beam prober, laser voltage prober, time resolved photon emission prober, nanoprobing. Fracture mechanics. Defects will still occur, regardless of how good the design, material, or fabrication into components is. If a designer or manufacturer is unable to provide defect-free components or materials, a strong defect tolerance should be the target. As a result, the idea of fail-safe philosophy has revolutionized design philosophy, replacing safe-life philosophy. However, defects can be tolerated if there is a fair basis for evaluating and tracking them. Fracture mechanics is crucial in determining the critical flow size at operating stress levels, as well as the initial flow size and subcritical flow growth characteristics of materials. However, in order to fully use fracture mechanics in practice, non-destructive techniques to detect defects and provide information on their position and size are needed. For defect detection, 5 non-destructive techniques are commonly used. They are dye penetrant test, magnetic particle test, eddy current test, radiography test, ultrasonic test. The first 3 can detect only surface and subsurface defects, while the other 2 can also detect remote embedded defects. Ultrasonic is way more sensitive to cracks than radiography, and when utilized in conjunction with fracture mechanics, it's proved to be a strong technique for demonstrating component integrity. In the field of failure analysis, fracture mechanics is rapidly gaining traction. It's used to figure out the scale of the defect that may have caused the failure under such circumstances, the criticality of defects in the component's remaining useful life in operation, and so on. It is used in failure prevention to decide the maximum defect size that can be tolerated, coordinate inspection schedules, and choose the best non-destructive inspection technique. Fracture mechanics is also useful for predicting, preventing, and evaluating delayed failures caused by stress corrosion, cracking, hydrogen embrittlement, and other factors. As with fatigue crack growth, there is a stress intensity factor threshold value below which no stress corrosion growth occurs in a given environment. When a plane strain condition prevails at the crack edge, this threshold value is typically the lowest, and it is usually designated as KISCC. If the applied or locked up residual tensile stresses and the environment are known, the stress corrosion lifetime as a function of initial crack duration can be calculated using the crack growth rate versus stress intensity factor for any structural variable. This assists in assessing the maximum size of the crack or defect to be found after manufacture, ensuring that there is no chance of stress corrosion failure in operation. Failure data retrieval through failure experience matrix. Underutilization of information learned from failure experience is often induced by inadequate reporting, inappropriate organization, and non-accessibility of failure data. Only through increasing service experience will the gap between readily acceptable and rejectable defects be narrowed in practice. At the moment, detailed computer simulations of crack growth or instability conditions in complex structures are possible. However, uncertainties in design analysis, material properties, NDT techniques, and the service environment continue to make assessing structural reliability under actual service conditions difficult, and in the long run, only experience can provide the intuition required to define safety and reliability standards, as well as the means by which predictions can be made. Because of the unorganized manner in which failure data was processed and the unavailability and inaccessibility of such data in the past, full use of previous failure experiences was not possible. Accuracy and pace are the most critical aspects of failure reporting. Any failure analysis report should adhere to the 5 C's: completeness, correctness, consciousness, transparency, and coherency. As a consequence, there is a need for failure data to be recorded and processed in a structured and generalized manner, with fast retrieval, so that it can be useful to the entire engineering industry. The Failure Experience Matrix, FEM, is a tool for achieving this goal. The FEM is a three-dimensional cell matrix generated by plotting elemental mechanical functions on the first axis, failure modes on the second, and corrective actions on the third. At the intersection of each failure mode, elemental mechanical feature, and corrective action, a spatial cell is formed. Information on the identification of the sections that fail due to that particular combination of the three matrix constituents, as well as the specifics of the corrective steps taken and their efficacy, is available within the cell. Reliability. Any manufacturing industry is essentially a profit-making enterprise, and no business can thrive for long without a fair return on its investments. There's no question that the expense of reliability procedures adds to the initial cost of any unit, equipment, or system. However, when a manufacturer risks losing valuable customers due to unreliable goods, there is no other option but to pay this cost. The significance of reliability cost in a specific case is determined by the system's cost and the importance of the system's failure-free operation. When a part or piece of equipment fails, it may result in the loss of a multimillion-dollar device or human lives. The importance of reliability and the associated cost must be balanced against these considerations. It's a question of staying in business for the manufacturer. However, once his reputation for dependability is created, his business volume and profit will skyrocket. Any attempt on the part of the manufacturer to improve product reliability would result in higher reliability design costs and internal failure costs. Internal failure costs, on the other hand, will begin to decline after some time. External costs such as transportation are unaffected by reliability, but installation, commissioning, and maintenance costs will decrease as reliability increases. In general, aiming for total perfection by removing all mistakes isn't a good idea, even if it is possible. The reliability cost curves for different types of costs for an equipment demonstrate this. It is worthwhile to make sufficient investments for reliability up to a certain extent, and further investments are only recommended where reliability is of paramount importance. Thank you.